but hopefully everybody can hear me, and I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar, Networking for Change, using social media, networking, and an action plan to secure career change. I'm going to wait just maybe 30 seconds and try to figure out why my PowerPoint is being funny, and just give a few other people a chance to get started or to get logged in, and then we'll get started. All right, we'll get started again. Hello, anybody who might have just logged in the last 30 seconds. My name is Allison DeCock. I'm the president of the Illinois chapter of the Special Libraries Association. I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar, Networking for Change, using social media, networking, and an action plan to secure career change. As I said, I'm the president of the Illinois chapter of the Special Libraries Association, or also known as SLA. For those of you not familiar with the Special Libraries Association, as we do have some guests from outside the SLA membership, SLA is an international association of information professionals working in specialized libraries, such as corporate libraries, law and hospital libraries, nonprofit or museum libraries, and many, many other types of library or information management centers, even including some academic and public librarians. If you are not currently a member of SLA, we are so glad to have you joining us today for this free webinar, and we hope that everyone finds this to be a beneficial hour spent today. If you'd like to learn more about SLA, including perhaps about joining the organization, please check out our website at sla.org. So our presenter today is Cynthia Kramer. After working in agricultural sales for 11 years, Cynthia made a career change into library science by securing 3 internships and a part-time job. She currently works as full-time library faculty at National Louis University. Today, Cynthia will show us how to create an action plan with goals, including examples of how to use social media and traditional networking to make new connections. This webinar will give you a process that you can use to connect with the right people to gain work experience in your chosen area of library science. After Cynthia speaks, I will then share some real-world examples of putting her suggestions in place through networking at the SLA annual conference, which was just last week. Seems like so long ago, but it was just last week. There were many opportunities to connect with peers and find potential job leads at the conference this year. So I'll review some of the events for you. And just as a side note, our Illinois members may recall that in previous years, the Illinois chapter has had an annual conference wrap-up webinar that would fill in our members who couldn't attend the conference on any news that came out of the conference. We decided not to do that complete wrap-up this year, and instead are focusing on the networking opportunities at the conference. The reason why we are not doing the full wrap-up is because last year, and then again this year, there's been a post-game recap webinar put on by the Baseball Caucus. And last year, our own dear Ann moderated, but she just told me she's not moderating this year. But I still wanted to give her some credit for doing it last year. So Ann Henjold is our past president of the Illinois chapter. But anyway, this webinar usually features members of the board, such as Kate Arnold, Jill Strand, John DiGilio, and others. And since the webinar put on by the Baseball Caucus is like leaps and bounds better than what we could, as one chapter, could provide, we've decided not to do the full conference recap this year, and instead just focus on the networking opportunities that I mentioned, and especially in thinking about job searching and building of contacts. So we've got a great turnout today. We've got like 50 people online already, so we will definitely be leaving some time at the end for any questions you might have. If you don't want to wait until the end, feel free to submit your questions into the chat box, and if Cynthia has a natural break during the way, we can stop for questions, or we'll just save them all and answer them at the end of her session. And I'll also allow for questions at the end of my much briefer talk. Anybody that might be having any technical issues, we don't actually have any technical support today, so if you're having like problems with your audio, just maybe first try to adjust your computer's volume or maybe log back out and back in. So you know we are recording this session and we'll be making it available to all participants. So if you do experience any technical difficulties, just know that the recording will be available later. So I think that is it for me. So I'm going to turn it over to Cynthia. And it looks like she unmuted herself, so take it away, Cynthia.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you for the kind introduction. So welcome, everyone. Today we're going to talk about some new networking tools, or a fresh approach to networking. As Allison indicated, my background is in sales, and frequently in sales, in order to generate leads and make contacts, we use an action plan. So, when I was looking to make that change from my sales career into a library career, I decided to take all tools with me. So I hope you enjoy this journey. Go ahead and advance, Allison. Okay, so to open up, let's talk a little bit about strategies. The #1 strategy to have is to identify your goal or goals. So you have to take a little bit of time and think about where you want to be, what type of job you want to have, whether your goal is to get some basic experience if you're a student, or if you're trying to change over into another field, maybe get some experience in that field, or if your goal is to just find a job. You want to be somewhat specific, obviously. You're at least thinking about what's most important to you. And I'll give you an example of my goal in the next slide. But after you identify your goals, you got to think about the different kinds of tools you can use. For me, in my experience, I graduated in May 2011, and for about 1.5 years, I strictly used job sites to apply for jobs, and I wasn't really having much success. So after about 1.5 years, I decided to open up. I said, there's social media, Twitter, LinkedIn. I can just Google for things. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to flood everything and find out what works. And then, as I said, in sales, I'd been using an action plan. And you take your goals with the action plan, and then you break them down into steps and with details, and you assign dates. And another option, as you're networking, as you're meeting people, is to find a mentor. I didn't really have a mentor per se, but as I went through this networking journey, I had many mentors or many more experienced librarians that gave me some advice. Go ahead. So let's talk a little bit about my goal. So after a year and a half of searching, I was kind of frustrated, and so my original goal was I'm not going to take anything that's not a full-time position. But I switched. I said, my goal right now is to just gain the library experience I need that will land me in a full-time library position. So if you're a student or a career changer, make a list of the skills that you want. There are things that you don't have right now that you want, and you just need to identify them, speak them, write them. So for me, that included reference, instruction, cataloging, and online teaching. You can see I've already started a little bit towards the academic sector. Go ahead. So then this was kind of the fun part, choosing the pathways. So originally, I thought there was only one way: apply for a job, get an interview, do well in the interview, get the offer, land the job. But in actuality, there are many pathways to finding a job. And you always hear that networking is way more successful than just applying online. So some of the pathways that I explored were internships, paid and unpaid, volunteer opportunities, part-time work. Those were, things that I'd previously discounted because, I wanted the dual income with me and my husband. But, it comes to a point when if something's not working, you have to make a change. So we decided to budget and that I was going to go pursue these other pathways and we would see where it would land. And then location. You may hear when you're in library school or something, if you can open up your location anywhere, well, you can find something. Well, I was geographically restricted to the Chicago suburbs, but I decided to open it up to any library within 25 miles of my house. So a little scary, a little bit more of a commute, but one of the examples that I had was I did land an internship at the Newberry Library, and that was in downtown Chicago and was a bit of a commute, but did give me a lot of the experience, with special collections that you just can't get in, let's say, the Naperville Public Library or somewhere close to my house. Go ahead. Next.
Sorry, Cynthia, it did advance. Is it not showing?
Oh, that's okay. That's fine. All right. Okay. So then, after I've looked at my different pathways, now I'm going to talk a little bit about how to make contacts. And really, this is my specialty with focusing in sales. So, the one that I thought was really the most fun is to participate in the different societies. So, the first one I chose was special libraries, not necessarily because I thought I would end up as a special librarian, but because I knew that they had really strong programs located in the Chicago area. And so I wanted to start, with a group that was well organized and already had, a pretty good system going. So that's how I chose the Special Libraries Chicago chapter or Illinois chapter. Then, after you get to meet some people, you can take the leap and volunteer for a committee. So I looked at, they hand out the list of everything that you can volunteer for. And at that point, I saw that the social media, they needed help with social media. And I thought, well, this could be a win-win for both of us because I need to learn more about social media and they need the help. And then, through the social media, I'll know what all the events are because I'll be promoting them. A second way to find contacts is to use the resources at your school if you're recently graduated. So in my instance, I did the LEAP program at University of Illinois, and there are several people that are dedicated to help you find experience and help you find a job. So I contacted one of those individuals, Roy Brooks, and I said, Roy, it's been a year and a half. I really need to get some volunteer experience. Can you help me out? And the first question Roy asked was, well, what type of library do you want to work in? I was like, oh yeah, I got to think about that. So I said, academic. He said, all right, well, I'll put you in contact with Dina from National Louis. Here's her email, send her what you're interested in, and let me know how that goes. So, I mean, it can be very natural, you find people, it's their job to help you out, and so it's kind of like you need to be a librarian and do your research and know what resources are available to you. So then another aspect that definitely comes from my sales background is I decided to create a list of all possible libraries I could apply to or contact. So I started with brainstorming, just thinking about all the libraries I'd heard about or liked, especially ones in my area. But you can actually find a list of these. So I was familiar with Sales Genie, so I used that to run a list and get a names and phone numbers and emails for all the library heads, let's say, in all the libraries within 25 miles of my house. You can get a similar list from InfoUSA for free from the public library. So what this did is this kind of allowed me to really understand that there was way more out there than I had thought of, especially for the special libraries, librarians that are working at companies. You know, I feel when you're searching for a job, it can be hard to know where the opportunities are if you restrict yourself to a library job site, such as ineedalibraryjob.com or something like that. So go ahead, Allison. All right, so now I've got my list of contacts, and this may be the scary part for you guys. I don't know. I mean, I was really ready. I was going to contact email. I was going to do mailings. I was going to do phone calls. But in the beginning, I just started with email because I thought it's easy. You know, it's non-confrontational, and so what I did is I just had a short email briefly explaining my background, that I was a recent grad, that I had a science degree, that I'd focused my library studies in science and reference. And so just stating my qualifications and stating what I was interested in. I'm interested in gaining experience. I'm interested in volunteer opportunities, part-time internship. Simple. Everyone's time is valuable, so I wanted to be respectful of that. And I probably sent that out to maybe 10 individuals. So, one was the contact from National Louis that I'd gotten from my school. Another was a librarian at Argonne National Laboratory. My dad worked there, so I asked him to get me the contact information for that person. And there were other people that I emailed and didn't hear back from. So that's, kind of a lesson you learn in sales, is it's kind of a numbers game. So not everyone you contact is going to get back to you. But the people that do get back to you are most likely interested, and those are the ones that you want to pursue. Go ahead. So, I talked a little bit about how to identify the libraries, but now I want to talk about identifying and applying for internships. So, again, the traditional method is to go to job sites. So, but as I said, I was looking at everything. So I Googled library internships, and that brought up the Newberry Library. It brought up Brookfield Zoo. I posted to LinkedIn groups and Facebook. So you can see that social media is starting to play here. I used it to attend events, but I also posted to the groups. I said, I'm a new librarian. I'm looking for experience. Does anyone have anything? Or does anyone have any suggestions? And what happens is your post is going to show up on someone's phone, and if they know something and they want to help you out, they'll reply to you. As librarians, people are generally pretty helpful. Another option that is definitely available, but I didn't use, but you definitely should be aware of, are all the different listservs that are available. So you could join one in whatever your specific area was, academic libraries, science libraries, engineering libraries. And you could post your question that way. You just want to be respectful and, follow all their rules. Let's see. I see a question, so I'm going to look at it. Question, did you find a best time of day or week to reach out to the new contacts? Would you reach out more than once? Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say the best time of day, I say morning is the best time of day, and you could always reach out more than once. I typically would reach out maybe once a week. It may take up to 6 times to contact someone. It depends how bad you want it, and just maybe even trying different ways. Like, you can start with an email, and then you have the next week you could have a phone call and say, I sent you an email. I wanted to follow up and see that you got my email. I'm really interested in learning more about your place of work and what you might have available. Something like that. So that's typically how I would approach that. I hope that answers the question. All right, so I'm gonna go back. So again, I didn't discount websites. Obviously, University of Illinois has a good job forum, so I did check there daily. I Need a Library Job is great, so I checked there. The ILA website, Rails website. Then that's where I found some. The internships could be reposted there as well. But you'll find out as we go through this webinar that the ones I actually got are the ones where I made that personal connection first, not the ones that well, except for the Newberry. The Newberry I just flat out applied. So all of it could work, but I feel like you're going to really have a greater chance of success if you make that personal contact first. All right, go ahead, Allison. All right, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about your in-person networking, which is, just as crucial as all the other parts. I mean, it's all part of the same objective. So, again, I attended many conferences. I really like conferences. I had a strategic plan when I went. I would sit next to someone I didn't know, and I'd use that Dale Carnegie approach. So different things I would do. I go to conferences, dinners, speaking engagements, really anything I saw that I could fit into my schedule. I wanted to be open and not, and just find out what opportunities are there. So for those that aren't familiar with Dale Carnegie and how to win friends and influence people, basically the idea is you're going to ask someone, what do they do? What's their job? Everybody there has a job or is looking for a job. And then you find out, well, how did they get there? What jobs did they have before? And you'll find out more often than not, people are going to want to tell you about themselves and their journey. So I let them, because networking is about 80% of listening and then 20% of talking. And so I would listen for about 80%, and then I explained, who I was, and I had a science background, and I had this extensive background in agriculture and sales, and then I would ask them for their contact information. And when I went to these conferences, dinners, speaking engagements, I had these business cards that I printed myself with my name, my degree date, all my contact information, and then on the back I had listed what I was looking for. I was looking for library experience and reference and instruction. So it was really clear if they had my card and they popped it over, they knew, oh, this is that person that was looking for experience. And I even had a little QR code to my LinkedIn too, so they could add me if they wanted. Go ahead. All right, so now we get to the fun part, which is the action plan. So I've discussed the process and where to look, but if you're kind of mulling over all these things, you can say, wow, this is really overwhelming. How am I going to know when I'm going to call people? How do I even get started? So as I said, I took an action plan, which is a simple Excel document, and you basically organize your goals and you break it down into steps, and then you kind of check them off when you achieve them. And it's really important to include dates because the dates will make you accountable for it. It'll help you focus on what you want to focus on this week. And the beauty of the action plan is it's just yours. You're not looking for a job professionally, and things can be changed or moved or deleted. So you don't have to feel a lot of pressure, but at least you have something digitally written down that you've committed to. And I think there's a lot of research on that, and people that write down their goals are 50 to 100 times more likely to accomplish them. And then in the action plan, if you need to make a little section just for parts of preparing the action plan, you can do that. It's completely customizable to what your needs are. Okay, next. See, I don't get all these chats. I can't see them all the way, but yeah, I'm sorry. I did kind of just go right past Rails, assuming everyone was from Illinois, and they're not. So that is just a regional site for everyone. Oh, how much money did I invest during my search? Well, I'm gonna let you know that conferences by far were the most expensive. Business cards were nothing. I went to Office Max and I bought printable business cards for 10 bucks and printed them on my computer. And then here's a secret for everyone. If you volunteer for things, you can get in for free. So, you know, I don't know if that's true for SLA, but I know for the medical library conference that was just in Chicago, if you volunteered to work the welcome desk, let's say, they gave you a free pass. So if you're on a limited budget, always ask if you can volunteer. And then you most likely could get in, maybe not for the whole thing, but you could get into parts for free. Or you could get a discounted pass to go look at the exhibits. The idea is, let's say you can't afford to go to all these events. You can always find a way. You can find options. You may not be able to go to everything, but you can find options to do that on a budget. So here's an example of the action plan. So this one, as I said, came straight from my job, so still had my name on it. And obviously I deleted everything out and put in library-related things. So for fun, I color-coded it, you know, things that were open, on track for completion, things that were delayed or issues, and things that were completed. So, you know, the first activity that I thought was really important for me was to create this library call list. You know, so I'm going to create a call list. And this is the first week. I'll make a list of library job sites, and then I'm going to create, you know, my prospect list, which is who I'm going to call. So that was like my first week of January. And then my second week, I was going to kind of create this letter text. So that's going to be, it's kind of like a script. You know, how am I going to present myself? And then in week 3, I was going to email and call previous contacts. So over the past year and a half, I had, you know, amassed a list of, you know, previous people that I contacted. And, you know, in sales, when you like remake a connection, I can't remember how much more successful it is than an original, but I mean, maybe 10 times more. So it's always best when you're reaching out and making connections again to start with all the people you already know. So another tip there. All right, go ahead, Allison. All right, so here's just another page. So again, this is kind of the another social media aspect of it. You know, I thought, well, who do I know? I said, well, I remember all the people from school, so I'm just going to start adding them on LinkedIn. And add guest list is, you know, my library school. So add 10 contacts a week from guest list. You know, I'm going to add classmates and professors, and I'm also going to reach out to people that just look like they might be in the area that I want to. I also went to Notre Dame, so I put that on there. But as you can see, those actually made it to yellow. And the reason why those made it to yellow is I had so much success with the people that I had, you know, just contacted immediately that I actually didn't have to go through all these lists that I created. So I had this really expansive plan, but when I really got down to it and started to focus on what I really wanted and networking at the, you know, I had put in so many options that several of the options I had were already working, so I kind of had to drop some, obviously. So let's see. So I have SLA Illinois. I had 3 things for them: post to social media, go to meetings, renew membership, pretty simple. But the nice thing about the action plan is when you write it out, you're actually you're kind of acknowledging yourself for doing these things, and it kind of makes you feel good. And this whole process, when you feel good, you know you're on the right track. So I have some other abbreviations here: ALA, American Library Association, ILA, Illinois Library Association. And again, I was just brainstorming. You know, I'm kind of just making something like a 10 session, so there must have been a meeting at that time that I should go to. And then, as I said, I kind of really been interested in the college library arena, so you know, I wanted to sign up for that section, but as you can see, I dropped it because I didn't have time or something like that. And then ILA, look at their networking options. So that was something a little bit more in the future. And then Society of American Archivists, you know, I just explored them because I knew they were out there. I didn't really know what it was. So, but at the same time, you know, I'm just kind of giving you an aspect into how I thought about the whole process. And I guess the thing I want to share with you is when you start, you won't know. You won't know what's successful or what to do or what's going to work in your scenario, but that's the beauty of the action plan. You can really revise it. For me, things were going so fast, I didn't have too much time to go back to the action plan. You know, I was getting interviews, I was getting responses, so I just wanted to share that with you. Okay, next. So for fun, you know, I'm a librarian, I have to give you some book to read. So if you wanted something kind of motivating to kind of just give you kind of give you some feedback for networking, some 10 things to think about, there's the 10 commitments of networking. So again, a book for you. Next. All right, so here I'm going to give you some final thoughts. You know, while doing this job search process, I mean, it took me probably about 2 full years to find my library job, but it only took me 4 months after I started applying this process. So, you know, I was getting, obviously in the beginning, I was discouraged. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to apply. And then I just changed, as I said, after about 1.5 years, I just changed my outlook and my expectations. And it really benefited. And it's fun and adventure, and you end up knowing yourself and knowing what you really want. So I'll kind of conclude with how my story played out. So when I contacted National Louis University, they got back to me and said, oh, we have part-time on Saturdays from 9 to 2. And I thought, oh, well, that would be perfect. I could keep my job and get a little bit of library experience. It'd be something. So I went in to interview, and they said, oh, we hired someone for that, but we really need someone part-time, maybe 16 hours a week. Could you do that? And I said, yeah, I could. And so I interviewed, and then I was done. They really liked me, and they said, well, you're the only person we're interviewing, so just let us know if you want to work here or not. You can have a week or so. And I said, okay. And I thought, wow, that was so easy. I was really delighted with that. So I secured that part-time. And then as I was going through, the internships came in, Argonne, Newberry, Brookfield, and those all came in at once. And that was a little hectic for me because I was like, oh, I have to pick one, or I have to pick 2. I worked it out so that I could do 2, and in the end I had to decline the Brookfield Zoo for Argonne because Argonne was paid, and I felt that Argonne had more librarians and had a better chance of me possibly working there in the future. You know, so you have to be smart and prioritize when your ship comes in. And you know, and then after that, I did a rush UIC practicum in the fall, this past fall, and I had applied for that before and interviewed and had been turned down. And so I hadn't thought anything about it, but then, you know, they remembered me, and after about a year, you know, they contacted me back and said, oh, well, we have an opening, would you be interested? So the moral of that story is you always want to be making your contacts, and interviewing for jobs and talking to people, because you never know if maybe you're not the right fit right now, but a year from now you may look better to them than before. And I've heard that story, iterations of that type of story from many people. And the reason I hear all these stories is, again, when I go to different types of events, I ask people to share their story with me, because I feel every time I talk to someone about how they got their job, I'm learning something about how to get a job. So, all right, Allison, you can go to my final slide. So here's my contact information. You know, if you have any more questions, do contact me, because I think you're going to have a lot of questions as you go along the road, and anyone that you can talk to or get another perspective is going to be helpful. So I hope everyone was able to pull some things from my presentation today. And I'm going to just make sure that I got through all the questions. Let's see. Oh, SLA does have jobs. Yes. Okay. All right, Allison. I think I'm all set. If you wanted to jump into your presentation.
Yes, thank you so much, Cynthia. That was really helpful. If anybody does have any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat box, and we'll give people a sec to come up with any thoughts that they might have. And I just, as you were talking about internships, I'm a solo librarian at the Shedd Aquarium here in Chicago, and there is no money to hire a part-time staff or anybody like that, but we are lucky enough that we have a library school in the city, Dominican University, and so I get a lot of students that will come through and volunteer for a year or two while they're in library school, and every one of them has used me as a professional reference in the end, and every one of them has gotten a job. And I don't know if that's because of my reference, but just having some experience, whether it's paid or unpaid as an intern or whatever, is a boost for them. So, and it's super helpful for me, because I couldn't do a lot of the stuff that I need to do without volunteers. So, Cynthia, it looks like there is a question here. Someone asked, due to my full-time non-library job, I can't do an internship. Any suggestions to gain library experience? Do you have any thoughts on that? Mine is, maybe you can volunteer somewhere on a weekend, and so not a professional internship necessarily, but you could still get some volunteer time working in a library. Cynthia, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, and that was my exact problem for really through my whole library schooling. I mean, I knew I wanted to work in libraries, but I was working full-time sales and traveling all over the country. And so for me, as I said, what ended up happening is I had to kind of plan ahead and save money and say, I'm going to take this jump, and I'm going to, you know what it is? It's more of, if you're going to, you may still have to open up to, there still should be, depending on what your schedule is, there are still part-time and evening options and weekend options. So you may have to go, to do a weekend option, you might have to go to a community college 45 minutes away or something like that on your Saturdays. But I feel if you're restricted and you have to have your full-time job to stay afloat, you're just going to you may have to really specify your action plan and say, I need to find people that need help on weekends, and just focus on that as your goal. Now for me, that wasn't really working, and so I opted to budget and take the leap. And to let you know, I ended up coming out financially okay for the year, and I guess I didn't finish the National Louis story, but after I finished all my internships, the dean left, and they offered me a full-time faculty job within me being there about 8 months. So it wasn't this huge, I mean, you can't expect that, except I've heard that happen a lot too. So, I hope that answers your question. Would the action plan work for those who have a lot of library experience and just recently lost their job? Of course it would, because you're just creating what your goal is. So you just lost your job. So what kind of job do you want? And you have all kinds of library experience. So where are you going to target yourself? Who do you want to contact? Where do you want to work? So you're going to have to do the same thing as someone that is just out of libraries. I mean, not the same, but it's a similar type of process where you're going to have to make a list of who you're going to contact and how you're going to get yourself out there and who you're going to talk to. And you've got a way better thing in that you can sell yourself pretty easily because you have a lot of experience. My problem is I would get these interviews, but then I couldn't sell myself because I didn't have the experience that they wanted. So the idea is you'll use this networking to find opportunities that you may have not seen before and get yourself out there. I hope that helps.
And Cynthia, there was one other question about sharing slides online.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I can give those wherever you guys want them. Yeah.
We'll post those along with the audio of the recording, so you'll be able to see both of them together. So I think that that's all the questions that came through for now. Oh wait, was there one more? Oh, there was one more question. Would employers think it's strange if a newly unemployed librarian who has experience in one type of library was looking for an internship in a different kind of library?
Well, I mean, here's what I experienced. You're going to come across every type of personality. So your goal is to use the numbers game to find the library with the experience that you want that fits your personality. So maybe there are 10 out there and 5 of them would think you're pretty strange. So, but then there's going to be 1 or 2 that don't, and so your job is to contact all 10 so that you connect with the 1 or 2 that don't, that think you're awesome. I know that's kind of a weird positive spin on it, but that's what that's kind of what they teach you in sales school is that there's all different personality types out there and you're looking for the one that fits your personality type. So I mean it's easy to get discouraged if 2 or 3 of them did say, well, we don't even take people that already have all this public library experience. But you wouldn't want to work for that environment anyway. You want to go somewhere that recognizes what you've done before, which is what they did for me at National Louis.
That's a very good point. All right, so if anybody else has any other questions, feel free to pop them into chat or into the question box, and then I'll chat for a little bit and show you a few pictures, and then we'll come back to any questions at the end. So I am going to talk to you a little bit about networking at the annual conference, and especially thinking about, Cynthia talked a lot about the numbers game. Well, you can't get more numbers in one room than at a conference, but there were some really great opportunities that I could identify when we were there. And, Cynthia has great experience in sales. She knows how to put herself out there and talk to strangers and do all that. And for me, networking is a big, scary thing. I hate it. I find small talk challenging. I find finding common interests frustrating. I would, in every single case, rather be in my hotel room raiding the minibar and watching old episodes of Seinfeld. Like, I don't like doing the networking thing. But I realize that it is a necessary evil, especially if you are trying to job search. Networks are the biggest way to find out about jobs and to know people and get to your name out there and all that. So I am always happy to find opportunities that involve networking but aren't, don't tie my stomach up with knots. And there were definitely some of those opportunities happened at the conference where I felt comfortable and I felt like I could be myself, and so I thought that I could share some of those with you in the hopes that maybe you will find ways to get even more out of the annual conference, whether it's in Boston next year or Philly the year after, or if you're going to ALA or you're going to MLA or whatever conferences you go to, big or small. So this year's conference, advance my slide here. There we go. This year's conference was in Vancouver, obviously, last week, and it was smaller than some of our previous conferences. But one benefit to that is that it made networking a lot easier, or at least a bit easier. The fewer numbers means you recognize people more often. Whether it's somebody you were in a session with or you met at a party, it was more likely you'd see them again, and then you'd have something to talk to them about because you've already met them once. But then there were also some great opportunities to network and meet people in a variety of other events. So some silly pictures here, I recognize, but there were a few things that that I attended or I co-hosted that were a lot of fun that I enjoyed. So the first one, and these are the pictures at the bottom there, were from the Midwest meetup. So this was organized by the Minnesota, Michigan, and Illinois chapters, and it was held at one of the conference hotels, just in the bar at the hotel. And we had about 40 people from all over the Midwest that came in for a drink and just to chat. I ended up meeting a few people from Illinois that I didn't know, and then obviously met a lot of other people from the Midwest. It was a really easy, really informal gathering. There's a lot of laughing and socializing. It was the Saturday night, so it was the night before the conference started, not including the pre-conference stuff. But what a lot of people said to me is it gave them a chance to get to know some folks before the conference, and then they got to see them throughout the rest of the 3 or 4 days. And then they knew people, and they could reconnect with people maybe that they thought about later or had an idea with later that they could then talk to after that. So it was great to have this event right away at the beginning. And I think a lot of people enjoyed it. People came up to me afterwards and said that they liked it. Some people that were no longer in one of the Midwest chapters joined us because it gave them a chance to see some old friends that they couldn't see before. And it was small enough that you could socialize easily, but big enough that there were a number of people to meet. So, if you're bored in one conversation, you just go to the next. Not that that ever happens, right? And just for anybody else in any kind of leadership role that might be on this webinar, it was super easy to organize. It was just like we called the bar, we sent out some emails to listservs and got it organized. So the other event that we did was the Illinois chapter luncheon at the Info Expo. I don't have any photos of this. And yes, I'm going to get to that one of the 2 people in the Cubs t-shirts. But so the Illinois chapter lunch was, we put this on 2 years in a row, and it's a really easy way to meet some fellow people from your chapter. For me, I get to connect with members that are outside the Chicago area because most of the events that we put on for the Illinois chapter we have them in the Chicago region because that's where the majority of our members are. So at this event, I get to meet some people that are maybe from outside the Chicago area. And it's free because it's the same day. It's the lunch that the conference puts on for us. So I just get there early. I grabbed a table, put up a sign that said Illinois chapter, and anyone that wanted to join could. And then I had sent out a message to our listserv before that. And then I actually tweeted about it, and the SLA Tips Twitter account retweeted it for me. So that was easy, quick advertising. But so the benefit here is obviously it's a small table. It's 10, 12 people that are sitting at it. But it's regional. It's in your area. There are people that are just in your area. So if you are job hunting, then you're connecting in a nice, casual, informal way with other people in the area that might be aware of jobs that are out there. So again, working that numbers game. And then the picture at the top, that's from the IT dance party, the infamous dance party that happens at the conference every year. And for anybody that may have participated in the May Madness trivia contest that SLA puts on, those 2 folks in the Cubs t-shirts are from the St. Louis chapter. And they had challenged us to a little quiz duel, and whoever won got to make the other team wear either a Cubs t-shirt or a Cardinals t-shirt. And so for anybody who isn't aware, there's a serious rivalry between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs, baseball teams, obviously, for anyone not in the U.S. that might not know. But so St. Louis lost, so members of their board had to wear a Cubs gear at the IT dance party. So I think they felt it a little more than I would have felt it, since I'm not really a baseball fan in general, but it was a lot of fun. Obviously, I enjoyed making them wear Cubs gear considerably. So anyways, that was just one of the parties. There's tons of parties at these events or at the conference. There's the IT dance party. There's international party was another one I went to. There's lots of vendor parties that you can snag an invitation to. And so some of them I found were better for networking than others. So, the IT dance party and the international party, they're huge attendance, but it's loud, so it's harder to maybe have a really in-depth conversation. But I went to the Elsevier vendor party, and one of the things I noticed about vendor parties is they're designed for communication, because obviously it's vendors. They want to meet potential clients. They want to talk to you about your needs. They want to explain what they offer. So it's set up really well for conversations. So I really, I met a lot of people just at the Elsevier party, not only obviously their sales folks, but then other people within SLA. So, and people are going to the vendor parties with a different sort of professional outlook than maybe the IT dance party. Obviously, it's a different environment. So those are kind of good places to hit up. And hey, maybe, if you're job searching, don't rule out working for one of the vendors that that many of us hire for products or use for products, because they're looking for librarians too. So there are lots of other opportunities to give you a chance to network at the conference, but these were some of the ones that I just kind of wanted to highlight that I participated in and wanted to share. I hope that this is helpful. I hope that this whole presentation is helpful for folks that are currently job searching or starting a job search. I know it's intimidating and it's scary and it's a lot of work, but I wish you all the best. So I think, yeah. So that's it for me. I'm going to quick double check and see if there are any other questions in here. Looks like we have one roughly. How many attended the Vancouver SLA conference? There were, I think, about 2,000 total. So it was the numbers were a little lower this year, which headquarters expected, because it was going to be on the West Coast again, and it was international. So the cost was a little bit higher to go to Vancouver. I don't know if people actually had passport problems, but any North Americans now needed a passport to go to Canada. So the numbers were a little bit lower, but like I said, I personally found that to be valuable because I saw more people. But I imagine next year Boston the numbers will be up again. So, any other questions? I'll give people a sec. Do you have any other questions? And Cynthia, I don't know if you had anything else to add. If you do, feel free to chime in.
Well, if anyone wanted the Excel of my action plan, I could have you email that out.
Oh, that's great.
If they wanted it, just delete what I had and make it as a template. They could help with that too.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you for offering that, Cynthia. So if anybody does want that, go ahead and email. Cynthia's Gmail is up there on the screen now, so feel free to email her about that. Oh, and then one other note, just reminding about that, the webinar that will be reviewing the entire conference. I'm pretty sure they're still planning on doing that. I talked to the organizer about it at the conference, and they're planning on it. I haven't heard a date yet, so but hopefully we'll all find out about that soon. So your chapter or division leader should send that out. So well, unless there are any other questions, I would love to thank all of you for participating and to thank Cynthia for that very informative session. Like I said, we're going to post a link to the audio of the webinar onto our chapter website, and we'll also put the PowerPoints up there, or Cynthia's PowerPoint. Nobody really wants to look at my pictures again, I'm sure. We'll put those up on the chapter website soon. I'll email you guys, everybody who attended, as long as you registered with your email address. I'll send everybody a link when that's ready. And if you have any other questions that pop up, in the meantime, do feel free to email me or Cynthia. And I think that's it for me. On behalf of Cynthia, myself, and the Illinois chapter, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today, and I hope everybody has a great afternoon and weekend. Thank you.